Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Another edition of the PDPreps podcast. I'm Gus Morris. That's Kienan O'Doherty. It is October. Crazy. Spooky season is here. October 3rd. We're recording this about 12:30 Tuesday. Man, taking a look back at week 6, final week of league or of non-league play for a couple of, for most of the North Bay League teams. VVAL play is well underway. And we'll take a look at all that. A couple of other things I think we'll get to today. Obviously, as usual, taking a look back at week 6 games, taking a look at our week 7 rankings. But we're also going to kind of take a bit of a look at each of the leagues, the NBL Oak, NBL Redwood, and the VVAL. As things kind of stand now. Obviously, again, like I said, the NBL Oak and Redwood are starting up league play this week. Kind of doing some outlooks for those leagues, kind of seeing where teams stand coming off of the pre-league schedule, kind of contenders. Who are some what are some of the big games to watch. Things like that. And then the VVAL kind of taking stock after a couple weeks in and looking ahead. We have some big matchups coming up here in the next few weeks over in the VVAL. So some good games to watch over there. And then, as always, talking about our predictions, what we got right, what we got wrong. Another mixed week for both of us. Definitely some surprises for sure. And then taking a gander over at the week 7 schedule, full preview, looking at our game of the week. Let's get right into it, Keenan. You were actually not around on coverage last week, but you would kind of eagle eye 30,000 foot
ones
view,
and twos, baby, ones and twos. Someone actually asked me on Twitter what that meant, and I was like, just means I'm working behind the scenes this week. I was manning everybody else, making sure everybody was doing their job, even though it was mainly just you. So
no, I did a great job on the ones and twos. What did I guess kind of before we get into the games, again, you were kind of the guy, watching everything, the man behind the scenes. What was I don't know what stood out to you last week?
It was definitely there were definitely some blowouts. I don't think it was as exciting as we've had. Obviously, we've been blessed throughout the first couple or so weeks of the season. We've had some exciting slates of games. I don't think, and this isn't to down any team or anything, but I don't think this was maybe the most excitable slated games on the schedule. Obviously, like you said, we're kind of in the tail end of the non-league season, about to head into league season. Teams are ramping up, ready to get into that league season, ready to get into that title chase. But regardless, there were still some great games. We'll touch on later. But UCI St. Bernard's had a fantastic battle. St. Vincent came back. Some of our top teams just kept on rolling. And we'll talk about this one too. But your Greyhounds came out in a pretty interesting game, to say the least. We'll talk about that one in a bit. But definitely some surprises. Top teams still continue to roll for some of them. Some of them fell this week, actually. But why don't we just go straight into it, Gus? You were on coverage duty. You were in person. You were at our game of the week, Santa Rosa at Pioneer. This is always an interesting Santa Rosa rivalry, I would say, on opposite sides of the city. Gus, just kind of talk us through it. Looks like Santa Rosa came out on top.
Yeah, this is this is an interesting game. Like you said, Santa Rosa came out on top, 28-9 winners. Might be a scoregami. I don't know if I've seen a 28-9 score here in a while. Kind of midtown, crosstown rivals. Santa Rosa, only a few miles away from Pioneer High School, but there was definitely this is a lively game. I'll say that. Some of the Santa Rosa players after the game, after they had won, were definitely celebrating a lot, and they'd said that some of the Pioneer players have been talking some smack on social media, I guess, leading up to the game. So that felt good to kind of get one over on them. But yeah, looking back at this one, there's kind of a lot of recent domination in this series. From Santa Rosa. Obviously Santa Rosa this year is up in the NBL Oak, Pioneers down in the NBL Redwood. They were both in the same league a couple years ago. Santa Rosa was really good. The last time that they played, and it was a total runaway victory for the Panthers in that last meeting. But they've had a couple close meetings kind of over the years. But literally going all the way back, Pioneer's last win over Santa Rosa came in 2011. So
Wow.
coming in. So yeah, I mean, and again, that was back in the old North Bay League days, when it was the North Bay League and the Sonoma County League, kind of that, that two league system that we used to have. But yeah, I mean, again, coming into this one, it looked like Piner was a pretty clear favorite. I mean, they just put up a bunch of points against Eureka. Their sophomore quarterback, so Pratt, great kid, lefty, but only in his like third or fourth game ever starting a quarterback. Obviously, Matty Erickson's injury. He's been great. Coming off again his best game, against Eureka, he had 300 yards, 6 touchdowns, and then Santa Rosa, I believe, man. I don't know exactly what they were coming off of last week. I think they had lost last week, or they were on their bye. This is bad podcasting, but yeah, they were on their bye. That's right. They were on their bye coming off of that loss to Ukiah. So it was kind of an interesting. It was like, all right, Piner coming in hot, momentum, 3-1. Santa Rosa coming off a bye and a loss. I know they've had some number issues this year, but it started out looking like it might be Piner's night. They drive down deep into Santa's territory. Can't make anything really happen with it, turn it over on downs, but then they get, the first points on the board. Santa Rosa snaps the ball out of their end zone on a punt, and all of a sudden, it's a safety, and the score was only 2-0 after the first quarter. Piner was leading, and then Santa Rosa executed their game plan. I mean, this is exactly what they wanted to do. I mean, head coach Roy Kienan had told me before, heading into the game, when I talked to him for the game preview, he said, no secret to what we want to do. We want to hold the ball. We want to keep their offense off the field. We want to keep their defense on the field. We just want to run the ball, execute, their jumbo sets, their option sets, just execute, play Santa Rosa football. The result will take care of itself. And that's exactly what happened. Santa Rosa scored twice, in the second quarter, led 14-2 at halftime. Got another touchdown to open the third, 21-2. Piner showed a bit of life late. They scored a touchdown, I believe it was in the fourth. Late in the third quarter, I believe it was. They scored, but then just not enough time left. And then Sir Jalen Jones, who just an incredible name, had a 90-yard pick six with like a minute and a half left for Santa Rosa to win the game. And he actually said too that his grandpa had passed away recently, so he was thinking about him, kind of the whole game and the whole night. So, good job for Jalen. I'm sure your grandpa was very proud, after that performance. He also was kind of kicking himself too, because he could have had 2 more picks. There were definitely there were like 2 or 3 balls that like Santa Rosa probably should have come down with and just didn't. But yeah, I mean, a very, very good performance from Santa Rosa. They had, including Jalen, they had 4 players find the end zone. Don Lemus almost had 100 yards rushing. Michael Mendoza had a rushing touchdown. Daniel Mills had a great game, almost 80 yards rushing with a touchdown. And then defensively too, Cooper Lee had a couple sacks. So still really strong showing for Santa Rosa. Prack, again, he had over 300 yards passing, but not the most efficient day. 14 completions for, on 43 attempts. Not the best percentage, but again, he was getting swarmed all night by Santa Rosa's front line, and then also Santa Rosa was really hanging back in the secondary and playing prevent. Piner got a couple jump balls up, which they always do, but really Santa Rosa kept them all in front, and a big bend don't break performance for them. So very solid win for Santa Rosa. Again, kind of keeping their streak alive over Piner. And yeah, moving on into league play this week on a really good note. So. Yeah, and again, Santa Rosa guys were also kind of letting me hear it after the game. We had definitely picked them.
Let both of us hear it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, we had definitely picked them to. We had definitely picked Santa or Piner to win that game. I think Piner opened as like 2 touchdown favorites according to CalPreps, and that proved to be very wrong. So kudos to Santa Rosa for proving us wrong, and great win for them heading into league play this week.
It was it's actually starting to now feel like football weather, Gus. You were telling me it started raining too, which is
man. At halftime it was kind of an ugly game. I mean, again, 14-2, and it was just kind of like, all right, this is a bit of a struggle. Like, both teams were kind of struggling to move the ball a bit. Obviously Santa Rosa was winning, but halftime I'm like doing my stats. I'm like, oh man, like really people aren't really doing a whole lot here. And then it started to rain in the third quarter, and I was like, oh, are you kidding me? So yeah, it's really starting to feel like fall. Like I said, spooky season,
spooky season, Jesus.
Spooky season.
All right, let's hit on some other big games we want to discuss here. Obviously, one of our top teams to fall, actually, Rancho Cotati lost to Pleasant Valley 35-7. Pleasant Valley very good team, Gus. I'm pretty sure last week you mentioned that they were the #1 team in the northern section, and rightfully so. They're a very well coached, strong team. Came into Rancho's house. It was pretty close early on, tied 7-7. Jacob Pruitt ended up re-aggravating, I believe, an ankle injury he suffered the week prior, so he sat out the rest of the game. Their running back Tapotu Hale just I believe just got a little bit of a stinger, so he was out the rest of the game. And after that, I mean, it was all downhill from Rancho's point of view, albeit there was a touchdown by backup quarterback Josh Milani, who ended up coming in there to score the lone TD. But Pleasant Valley kind of took advantage of both those injuries and turned on the Jets 35-7. They went over Rancho. Just a reminder, last year that Rancho went all the way up to Chico for Pleasant Valley's homecoming and just won pretty comfortably. So the Vikings were definitely out for revenge. They got it. If Pruitt's out for a good amount of time, that is probably one of the biggest hits of any team in our area for sure. We hope he's okay. It looks like he's gonna be okay, but got some big test coming up for Rancho in the next couple weeks, Gus.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say this is probably the story of the week is Pruitt's injury. I mean, he's been electric all year, and same thing with Hale too. I mean, it sounds like Hale's injury wasn't too bad. Don't quite know the severity of it yet or how bad it was. Maybe Gary, Hodling, Rancho's head coach, just pulled him out. Just for precautionary reasons, kind of after the game, kind of got out of hand there. So. But yeah, I mean, Pruitt again, he's hopeful to play this week. They're playing at Annaley this week, so. It's this is a game that Rancho should be favored in, especially if Pruitt plays. But if not, that's going to be a big question mark kind of going forward. I mean, again, Rancho's kind of been that second tier team in this area behind Windsor and Newman. And if Pruitt's limited or if he misses time, then that really kind of drops Rancho even farther down the list. So we'll see kind of how that works out going forward. But yeah, definitely something to kind of monitor and keep an eye on here in the weeks going forward. So. Anything else in this game, or are we moving on to Ukiah St. Bernard's?
No, go ahead. Move right on to Ukiah St. Bernard's there.
All right. Crazy game here. Ukiah winners 49-35. Another game that I got wrong. Kienan, you got me on that one again. I think you got me by one game again this week. So couple that could have gone either way. But yeah, this one was really, I mean, I was kind of following the live stream, that they had going on, and kind of a crazy game. Ukiah was up 27-0 to start, and it's like, all right, well, Ukiah is going to coast to this one. Here, back comes St. Bernard's. They score 35 straight, take a 35-27 lead, kind of midway through the third, and then a huge momentum swinging play here. But there was a block punt just before the third quarter. Vincent Tyrell snatches it out of midair, runs it back to midfield. Hit my computer, got excited. Tied the game 35-35 going into the third, and then in the third quarter, Tony Zacharias had two 20-yard touchdowns in the fourth, and Ukiah's defense shut out St. Bernard's. But yeah, very, very, very solid win for Ukiah. They're bumping up a bit in our rankings, kind of still in the bubble there a bit, but they've looked pretty good, I got to say. I mean, again, they had a couple of those hiccups, obviously. They got shut out by Windsor. Not a huge surprise there, ugly loss against, Dublin, missing some guys, just kind of tough road environment to play in. And then the other loss I'm trying to think was Casa Grande, who's looking like a pretty good team this year. And then again, they also have that win over Montgomery this year as well. And Montgomery appears to be, we'll kind of see, but again, they had that really good win over St. Vincent a couple weeks ago. So
who knows, man?
Yeah. I mean, again, we kind of joke that all these teams on the bubble, like Ukiah, Montgomery, St. Bernard's, Annaley, Korea, like I feel like they're all pretty even, and anyone could kind of beat anyone on any given day. So one team plays better, one team plays worse, but I feel like all those teams are relatively kind of in lockstep a bit. So obviously we'll kind of see how that plays out going forward in the league here, but yeah, another revelation here for Ukiah. I believe sophomore quarterback Bo David. He's had a great couple of games. I know you saw him in the Windsor game. Tougher, obviously much tougher team playing against Windsor, but he had 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards passing. This last week. So really strong game for him. Yeah, I mean, this game for Ukiah. I mean, Ukiah this week is heading into a their NBL Redwood opener against Maria Carrillo on the road. And we'll kind of see. I mean, again, we kind of,
that's a big one too.
It is a big one. I mean, we kind of think that, again, it's in the Redwood, it's going to be Ukiah, St. Vincent as the two kind of teams to beat. But, we think Korea could also be, probably kind of frisky and maybe in that mix. And so we'll really find out this week,
Sure.
again, seeing how that Ukiah Korea game plays out. But yeah, Ukiah back to 500, on the year heading into league play. So steps in the right direction, I think, for sure. And again, like like Cronin told you after that Windsor game, he's starting to really like how his team's playing. So that's that should put some other local teams on high alert. Hearing that.
Sure, huge morale booster for you guys, especially after giving up that huge lead. So I guess the next message from Paul Cronin is just how do you hold that lead? And not give it away. All right, but good one from Ukiah St. Bernard's has always been a pretty historically good program, especially among the small schools. So very, very good for them. Next one up. St. Vincent Fortuna. This is an interesting one. No doubt about it. Huge implications for as far as D6 go. Coming into this game, St. Vincent was number 1, I believe, and Fortuna was number 3. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah. Now after this one. Now it's St. Vincent 2 and Fortuna 4 or 5. So
2 or 4 or 5. But huge implications as far as NCS D6 seeding goes. St. Vincent was actually down 14-15 with 3 minutes to go on the clock. Jack Davis, their do-it-all utility, Swiss Army knife, whatever you want to call him, their Debo Samuel, that's what Trent called him after the game, actually, had that 70-yard go-ahead touchdown score to put him ahead and ultimately win it. I mean, that is a huge win, especially all the way up on Fortuna. That is a tough place to play. St. Vincent, obviously, coming off that very tough loss to Montgomery, where they battled back but just couldn't end up winning it. This is gets them right back on the right tracks here, Gus, and obviously big win for D6.
Big time, and also last week was also the first week that all of these kind of mid-year transfers were eligible. The sit-out period, I believe, ended on September 20, whatever that was, 28th, 29th. So all these players who transferred from other schools were eligible to play this this week. Windsor got the services of Ananias Walker, who came over from Rancho Cotati, and then St. Vincent. This is the first game with Mason Cattarelli, who was Cloverdale's stud freshman quarterback last year. This year he's going to be, he made his debut, on Friday, had a huge game, 125 rushing yards on 17 carries, and he also had, I think, 3 tackles for loss too. So and he led the team in tackles. So great kind of first debut for him, and he'll definitely be a big shot in the arm for that offense and also the defense. It appears St. Vincent doesn't have a huge team. Again, Division 6, they have like 200 kids in their school. I think like maybe less than 30 on their varsity roster. I think far less than 30 on their varsity roster. So getting a guy of that caliber, kind of into your rotation at this point of the year is huge for them. So should be a big piece for them to add going forward. But yeah, like you said, big result. Come Division 6 seeding time, St. Vincent again. Looks like the team to beat right now, I'd say, in the NBL Redwood, and but they do have one final, I believe, non-league test in a couple weeks. I think they play at St. Bernard's, they play at St. Bernard's. Actually next week out, so next Saturday. So, but yeah, and then again, home against Ukiah the week after that, and then they play at Healdsburg, and they finish up with Carrillo. So. St. Vincent is, if they play their cards right, they could be going into the postseason here at 8-1 maybe. So I could see it. So or 9-1 actually. Sorry. Yeah. So again, we had a lot of question marks about St. Vincent this year, but yeah, I mean, again, after that Montgomery loss, they've done, this is a very, very big bounce back win for them, and I think it gives them a lot of momentum going into league play. So yeah.
Yep. Well, Gus, I'll let you talk about the next one. But speaking of Ananias Walker,
mm-hmm. Good segue over there. Windsor took care of business. Not a whole lot to report on this one. I mean, Eureka's winless this year. They've been blown out left and right. So kind of a good just like get right game for Windsor. Just kind of clean some things up. 41-0 was the final, and really, I think it was fourth quarter was running clock, and And really, I mean, if Windsor had really kind of put the screws on him, I mean, this could have been 60-70, I think. But, kind of probably held off the gas a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, Ananias Walker, Rancho Cotati, 3-star recruit, wide receiver, defensive back, 2 touchdowns in the first half. Big game from quarterback Judson Anderson, 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. I mean, again, just second shutout in a row for Windsor, too, which, so it is kind of a good sign for their defense. I think that was a bit of a question mark, I guess you could say, kind of after the first couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, after giving up 42 points to Escalon, which is the #1 small school team in the state, they only gave up 14 points to Campo. Campo's also turning into, being actually a pretty good team in Division I. Only give up 14 points to Dublin, and then have back-to-back shutouts against Ukiah and Eureka. So defense is starting to head in the right direction. And I mean, again, like we said, it's all these teams have kind of starting to build a bit of momentum here going into league play. So I think a lot of teams kind of schedule this kind of, or maybe not, I don't want to say easy games kind of heading into the league, but they definitely schedule games that, if they win, will definitely kind of propel them going forward. So I think all these teams that we talked about, I guess outside of Rancho Cotati, do kind of have a lot of momentum here going forward. So, good game for Windsor. They have Santa Rosa this week. Again, Panthers obviously coming off a big win, but I think Windsor's going to be a heavy favorite there. And then some big games coming up for Windsor. They're playing at Rancho, the week after that. And then, of course, that season-ending game against Newman, which everyone has circled. So, 3-1-1 for Windsor.
Everyone better have circled, yeah.
So, 3 straight wins, though, for Windsor heading into league play. So, definitely heading in the right direction for them.
No doubt. Getting all those guys back, good for them. All right, this game is interesting. So, little backstory, folks. We thought we knew enough about Maria Carrillo because they blasted Petaluma. They beat Skyline 52-0, and now we have no idea what to make of them. They lost. The Annalee beats Maria Carrillo 21, and obviously credit to Annalee. They have two of their running backs that have been tearing up everybody. Their defense. I know Jared Brown spoke to you, Gus, that their defense has been lights out this season, playing probably the best. But it wasn't the defense that kind of what was the factor here. It was the special teams. Annalee had 2 kickoff return touchdowns. The second one gave them a 28-14 lead, and kind of just opened it up from there. Annalee went on to win 37-21. We also not sure what to make of Annalee. We have no idea what to make of either of these teams. It's pretty interesting, but that's the fun of it. Obviously, we're going to see how they do in the next couple weeks and all that stuff. But Maria Carrillo, Wyatt Olson, still having a fantastic season. 17 carries, 99 yards. Sorry, I accidentally wrote 199. It's 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lucas Ciota, 15 carries, 75 yards, 1 TD. I mean, we'll talk about this later. We'll dive into Maria Carrillo later, Gus, a little bit. But yeah, definitely up and down, win, loss. What's going on here? We have no idea.
All over the place. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's I mean, after they doubled up Petaluma 42-21 3 weeks ago, we're like, oh my God, all right, Korea's the real deal here. And now we're like back-to-back losses. They gave up 37 points to Annalee, 40 points against Wood. I think Wood's a pretty good program, but Annalee was definitely a surprising result. But I mean, again, I think this is kind of back to what I was saying earlier, where I think a lot of these teams on the bubble, like Annalee, like Korea, like Petaluma, you just catch a team on on an off night or on a hot night, and things could, any of those teams could beat each other. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing right here. But yeah, I mean, Annalee too. I think they had a monster game on special teams. They had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, I want to say. So I mean, that happens, against a Korea team, and I mean, you get a kickoff return for a touchdown, it feels like you get punched in the mouth, and it's kind of hard to recover off that. So, but yeah, just a great showing for Annalee. I mean, Annalee's 4-1 now, heading into the Oak. Again, I think that we had a lot of questions about them this year, and I think rightfully so. Again, a lot of guys have graduated. Their lone loss has only come against Petaluma too. But they lost by 20. And again, looking at the rest of their schedule, it's not like the hardest of schedules. Eureka, they beat by a lot. They beat elite charter school, which is this is their first year playing varsity football. Lincoln out of San Francisco is not terrible, but just not quite sure what to make mentally yet. But
can't put a finger on it. No.
Not quite, but again, I think they have some talent. Obviously, I mean, again, you're not, never apologize for being 4-1 despite your schedule. But yeah, I mean, again, I think a few of these games too, it's shown that that their defense has come a long way. I mean, again, 7 points against Lincoln, 7 points against Eureka, obviously, 34 against Petaluma, and then 22 against Elite, and then 21 against Korea. So, I mean, again, I think Korea too, it's like, when they play at their best, I think they can, beat a lot of teams in this area. And it just seemed like they didn't have their best, last week. So back to the drawing board for them. But, again, I kind of think of some of these losses too might be a bit of a motivator, for them heading into the league. Like, hey guys, maybe they were a little too high coming off of that Petaluma win. And now they've definitely kind of been brought back down to earth, and it's time to kind of hit the trenches again and, really get back to it. So we'll see how things go going forward. But yeah, I mean, again, I think both of us still think that Korea should be a bit of a player in league. I mean, again, I think they're kind of like the Rancho Cotati of the Redwood, where, I think it's going to be St. Vincent, Ukiah, kind of those top two teams, and then maybe Korea kind of lurking as that second tier team is like, could easily upset either of those two teams, but just depends on the night.
Who knows?
So, yep. All right. Speaking of defense, I guess we'll head over to our next game.
Good segue.
Casa Grande, 38, Napa 0. Casa, this was their VVAL opener. Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked all season about Casa's defense, and yeah, it showed up again tonight. This is what you should do, against a team that you're better than. I mean, again, 38 points, I think is also, that is also second most points that they've scored in a game this year, after 42 against Berkeley. But yeah, 4 straight wins for the Gauchos. This week they're playing, they're hosting Justin Siena, but it's the back end of that VVAL schedule that's going to be really tough for them. October 13th, they host Vintage. The week after that, they host American Canyon. And then the weekend after that, they have the Egg Bowl at Petaluma too. So, VVAL is going to be crazy again this year, especially after American Canyon beat, Vintage, last week, or I guess whatever, the week prior. So, 4-team race. I think Casa will be there when it's all said and done.
We'll talk about it. I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, I mean that's what makes the VVAL fun though. But I mean, it looked like all of our projected top teams in the VVAL took care of business and rolled. Are you good with Casa, or do you want to? Should we move on?
Go with Casa. Move on.
Yeah. So speaking of the bigger teams in the VVAL, obviously American Canyon. Speaking of taking care of business, they did so against Sonoma Valley, 49-14. American Canyon is on a roll. Obviously, we'll be covering that in our game of the week this week. American Canyon Petaluma, season high in points, 49-14. Against a Sonoma Valley team that has all the talent in the world. They just don't have the same size that some of these bigger VVAL schools do. 540 total yards for American Canyon. That is something that I don't think I've ever seen so far, at least this year. But yeah, American Canyon rolls. So 49-14. We'll take a look at some other quick hitters, Gus. I will let you take your Greyhounds. Talk about this one.
Yeah, well, last thing quickly on American Canyon, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of, again, 2 games into the season, or into league play for them, but 2-0 right now. They had a very, very hard pre-league schedule here, but yeah, they're looking really strong. And again, they just kind of took care of business tonight or last week. So yeah, again, like you said, that 2 big game this week coming up against Petaluma could be again one of these games where we're going to learn a lot about kind of what the league race looks like. So. But yes, on to my Greyhounds. I can't remember.
Are you proud of this result, Gus?
We'll get to that. Quick thing. I don't know the last time that we've had not just 1 but 2 ties in a season. So final score here was Healdsburg 42, Berry and Christian 42. I love my Greyhounds, but they kind of had this one in the bag and let it slip away. They led 21 in the third. Berry and Christian, late furious run there. They ended up scoring the game or tying the game in the 4th quarter. Healdsburg came right back, and it looked like that they had a go-ahead touchdown, right off of that, the Berry Christian score. That touchdown was called back. Berry Christian got the ball back, and they actually had a field goal attempt to win the game with 1 second left, but they missed it. And then Healdsburg first year head coach, remember, Randy Parmeter opted not to go into overtime. The way overtime rules work in non-league play, both teams have to agree to go into overtime. Parmeter did not wish to continue. Again, Healdsburg is a very small team this year, kind of injuries, just not kind of worth it really to kind of, press your luck, with a smaller roster, especially going into league, which is going to be very tough for them. So Parmeter opts to call it a tie, but couple good notes. I will take some good notes off of this. I mean, honestly,
I was waiting for those.
This is a win in Healdsburg's book.
Yeah.
This is a win in Healdsburg's book. Healdsburg had lost 18 straight games coming into this game. Not good. This is the most points. 42 points is the most points they've scored in a game since 2016. So offense is rolling, but even as Parmeter, will tell you, their defense is a long way to go. Guys just, don't quite know how to fully tackle yet. Physicality isn't quite there. But they can move the ball and they can score, which is a marked improvement from the last couple of years. So, again, Randy's been great as last few stops. He's led some big turnarounds. At like El Molino, he was there for a bit. Helped them kind of turn their program, back in the right direction. And, again, I know Healdsburg's still winless, and its league play is going to be very tough for them. I believe they're 0-4-1 now. Tough sledding for sure the rest of the way, but you're scoring points, which is kind of all a program like this can ask for at this point. So,
points, yeah.
Kids are having, kids are having fun, hopefully. And putting some points on the board. So just get the defense down, and I think some wins will start coming. But, I mean, this is like in soccer where it's like a tie feels like a win or a tie feels like a loss. This tie for sure feels like a win for Healdsburg. So, I will take it. I'll take whatever I can get right now.
I will take it.
I'll take it.
Take it. Cool. All right. Let's finish up with our last quick hitter there before we get into all of our other stuff. We got a pretty big podcast today for you folks, so keep on tuning in here. Cloverdale Gus 43, Upper Lake 12. Upper Lake in their first season back in 11-man football. But Cloverdale, kind of on a skid the past couple weeks, not living up to their potential they had last year. Obviously, the loss of Mason Catarelli certainly did not help. But they broke the skid this week, 43-12. They did it in pretty amazing fashion. Gus, talk to us about some of those plays and stats.
Yeah, just got kind of the the recap on Saturday from head coach Taylor Galloway. But yeah, I mean it sounded like it was this is kind of the Cloverdale team he was like waiting to see this year. So they led 16-0 after the first 4 minutes of the game and really kind of never looked back. Diesel Cavallo had himself a big game. He had an 80-yard kickoff return, a touchdown, I believe, to open the game, and then he had another short scoring touchdown. A few minutes later on their next drive, and again, like I said, they led 16-0 after the first, and that was kind of, I think it sounded like Upper Lake kind of got some, kind of started to get some points there, I guess, in the middle, in the middle quarters, but Cloverdale really just kind of put the clamps on late, and then just kind of ran away with it. Big thanks to Cole Grell. He's playing a bit of quarterback this year. I think he is their quarterback this year, but hat trick scoring for him. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. So shouts out Cole Grell, Diesel Cavallo again, big game for them too. So yeah, Cloverdale winless coming into this one, definitely a good win for them. But yeah, NCL 1 is really tough this year too, so we'll see how they kind of fare going forward. But I mean, again, there have been a few games. I mean, talking to Galloway, it's like he's like, man, like we're in a lot of these games that we've lost, and then all of a sudden, one mistake, one ball will bounce a different way, one missed tackle, and then all of a sudden, it's an avalanche, and we're always buried, after those plays. So. Again, a few breaks go differently, and this could be a different year for Cloverdale. But again, a win is a win, just like for Healdsburg, a tie is a tie, but a tie is a win. Actually,
yep.
A win is a win for Cloverdale here, and then again, much needed kind of going into the rest of NCL play, which will be difficult. So, Cloverdale's on the board.
Cloverdale is on the board. All right, so that kind of wraps up this past week's slate. Let's move on to our rankings. Just a reminder, folks, we are now in a top seven rankings, not top 5. We debuted these last week, so if you want to go check out our first ever top 7 rankings, go back and watch the last episode. Not too many changes this week, Gus. Only 2 big changes here. We got Cardinal Newman 1, Windsor 2. American Canyon takes the 3 spot over Rancho Cotati, who drops down to 4 due to Rancho's loss to Pleasant Valley. Casa Grande still at 5, and then St. Vincent and Vintage switch. St. Vincent with that big win over Fortuna. Vintage did take care of business. We forgot to talk about that one, but Vintage took care of business, I believe, against Justin Siena, 49-14 or 49-12 or something like that. But St. Vincent, huge division win, so we give them their props. They jump up to the 6th spot, and Vintage drops down to number 7 on the bubble. Montgomery stays, Ukiah stays, and we have Petaluma now as well, Gus.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I mean, again, Rancho's lost. AmCam's looking really good. They have a better strength of schedule, I believe, at this point too. Let me just double check that real quick. I think that's right. Anyway, actually now Rancho has a harder strength of schedule than AmCam, but either way, I still think American Candy being 4-2, and again, Rancho's 2 losses here again as well, probably deadly hurt them here, and again, especially with Pruitt out, I think they're a very different team. So again, we'll see how VVAL play goes. I think it's gonna be an absolute meat grinder this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little more movement between the AmCam, Gossip, Vintage, even Petaluma maybe. And then same thing with the NBL. Once the big dogs, Newman, Windsor, Rancho start playing each other, I think there could be a lot of movement between those guys too. So
gonna get exciting.
Gonna get exciting. This is why we love doing this too. And then St. Vincent back up over Vintage. Again, very very big win over Fortuna for them. So I mean, that's our top 7 for this week. I don't know. What do you think about the top 7? What do you think about the top 7 before we move on? I mean, it was kind of an interesting, trying to expand these things, with our Napa expansion. But I don't know. I kind of like having a top 7. And then
I like it too. I mean, I do like including the Napa teams and stuff, because I mean, very well deserved for some of these Napa teams. They're definitely no joke. I kind of like it. I really do. Obviously, we'll get to it next year, but next year with the realignment, we may do a top 10. It's going to be a whole nother ball game too. So
that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun as well. But no, I enjoy it actually. I really do enjoy it. So that's all we got to say about that, really. Gus, should we get into some of our league outlooks here before we make our predictions and stuff like that? We're going to go through each of the top 3 leagues: NBL, Oak, NBL, Redwood, and the VVAL. Kind of give you guys a synopsis on who's where, some of the big games to watch. Gus, let's start with you. Let's start with the Oak.
I mean, again, we've kind of talked about a lot of these leagues at length, but I mean, I think that I think it is good now that we're kind of kicking up league play to really kind of dig into some of these teams and kind of look at how these leagues could play out. And I mean, again, I don't think it's a mystery. I mean, I think again, if you've been paying attention to the to the local scene, if you've listened to us, the experts, you'll definitely probably know kind of who's the contender and who's not here. But I mean, I think the Oak, I mean, again, this is what everyone kind of predicted, and it's playing out as true. I mean, it's Windsor and Newman right now. And then again, like we've talked about all this whole podcast too, Rancho kind of sitting in that second tier, could be a dark horse, especially again if Pruitt can kind of get back to full strength for a couple of those games. But I mean, again, if Pruitt can't really go at full strength and Rancho loses, one of these games that they probably should win, then I think it's a very, very clear Newman Windsor, race to the top there. So I'm going to say something. I'm going to put something a little controversial out there. I think if Windsor and Newman played this week, I think Newman would win.
Really? If they played this week.
They played this week, I think Newman would win. I think. I know. I know. Luckily, this podcast will be out after tonight, because I'm going to the Newman Windsor volleyball game tonight, so no one will be able to hear this until after that. But I do. I mean, again, Newman, I think, has been the most.
I don't know. I might be able to make something happen. Work my magic.
I'm lucky you got to dip out here quick afterwards too. But no, I mean, again, I think Newman has been the most impressive team, I think, so far this year. Windsor, obviously, a bit of a tougher, definitely a tougher schedule. I'd say kind of to start, definitely some easier games, the last couple weeks, but they've been beating teams like a good team should. Their defense is starting to come around, but one of the things I've been kind of watching is it's been a bit of a slow start this year for Hayden Anderson. I mean, again, he was the NBL MVP last year, as a sophomore, really big things kind of, expected for him, this year as a junior. And I mean, again, Windsor's been winning games, and they've really been sharing the ball, and they have a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball. So it's like Hayden doesn't need to really have 400 yards in a game and like 7 touchdowns for them to win. But it has been a bit of a slower start for him, I think, this year. I think we were all expecting a huge junior year, and it just hasn't really happened yet. And I do think that come league play, I think they're going to start getting him much more involved in the in the passing game and the offense. I think that time will come, but I mean, again, I think Newman has been really solid across the board. I mean, I think their defense has been the best in the area. Zach Homan is looking like a legitimate player of the year candidate for our area. Their line offense and defense, I think, is probably the best in the area. I mean, again, this is a Newman team that is playing really well right now too, and again, I don't think they'll be tested a ton. Kind of, I think the first, I mean, again, Montgomery will be an interesting kind of litmus test. I mean, if Newman is as good as we think they are, I think they should probably handle Montgomery pretty well. But yeah, I mean, again, I think that Rancho game in a couple of weeks will be interesting to kind of see, especially with Pruitt's status. And then again, I think that last, obviously, again, the Newman Windsor game is going to be game of the year by far in this area. But I don't know. I think right now I mean, again, Newman is our number 1 overall team. Windsor is number 2. But yeah, I mean, I think if they played this week or even next, I think Newman's probably is probably winning that game the way they're playing right now.
Big statement there, Gus. Wow. Good for you. But yeah, no, I pretty much agree with what you're saying. Although I'm gonna say no comment on if Windsor and Newman played today. No comment on that. Anyways, but no, I agree with you. I think Newman has obviously been the most impressive team. The play of their line has been the biggest difference from last year into this year. Obviously, Matt Hilden dropping back down to the line from that quarterback position is definitely a big boost. And then you got guys like Devin Bertoli on the line and so on and so forth. So, yep. Newman, clear-cut favorite, like you said, but Windsor. I mean, Windsor's there. Windsor's there. It's the last game on the schedule for a reason, right? Unless Rancho or someone else can play. A little bit of spoiler. All right, let's transition here to the Redwood. St. Vincent, still the clear-cut favorites in my opinion. No real doubt about it. But Maria Correa and Ukiah are pretty much right on their tail. I would put. I know you said. I know you think Ukiah is a little bit higher than Creo, but I'm going to say I think they're kind of on the same tier here, despite the little inconsistencies that Creo has shown the last couple weeks. So I think they're the 2 top contenders, just based on the talent they bring and stuff like that. But St. Vincent is a clear-cut favorite, and that big win over Fortuna just adds to their resume. And I think they just are very, very hungry and on it, and are planning to go on a tear after that loss to Montgomery. But as with every league, Pioneer, there are some spoilers. I think Pioneer could play a little bit of spoiler, if not win, then at least play these teams very, very close. Give them a solid scare as well. And I got to give props to your Greyhounds. They are a lot more improved than last year. They're putting up a good amount of points on a consistent basis, and of course, 42 points certainly aids that case. But we do have some big games coming up in the Redwood. Obviously, October 6th, this Friday. We will have coverage from that one. I'm not sure who's going to be on that one, but Ukiah at Maria Carrillo, that's going to be a huge one to see if they're on the same level. Who's here, who's where, who's everywhere. October 22nd, Ukiah is making the trip down to St. Vincent. Obviously, that's a big one. That's going to be a Saturday game. And then November 3rd, obviously, last game of the season, St. Vincent at Maria Carrillo, kind of the same schedule you had last year too. St. Vincent clinched the Redwood against Maria Carrillo at home, but this time it's at Maria Carrillo. So yeah, certainly an interesting race. And obviously, Gus, like going back to last year, the races were all over the place across every single league that we had. So we could be in for some more entertaining races this year.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like you kind of said, we're going to figure out pretty quickly. I mean, this week, I mean, again, St. Vincent is playing Pioneer, Carrillo is playing Ukiah, so we'll really kind of see who those, one, I guess if Pioneer can be kind of a sneaky team, in that league race, and then we'll really kind of see who that second tier or even top competitor St. Vincent is, between Carrillo and Ukiah. So we'll have some answers for sure, by the time we do our next week's pod. So, but yeah, I mean, like you said too, it's like last year I think we were spoiled. I mean, I think every single league race, came down to that final week of the final
even
week
the
of the
NCL,
season.
yeah, even in NCL,
Even the NCL, yeah. But and again, I think there's enough games, kind of or enough kind of tough games, I think, between a lot of these top teams kind of early on that we might not have that this year. But who knows? We still have to play the games, and there's still a month left of the regular season, so we'll kind of see how things play out. But yeah, Redwood I think should be a very fun race this year. I don't think St. Vincent is going to run away with it by any means. I think Ukiah will be a very very top or a very very tough contender in that. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Ukiah wins the whole thing. I really wouldn't. I think with Paul Cronin, at the helm there, he's a very, very, again, great coach. He's won 230 games and counting for a reason. Again, I know those Newman teams obviously had a ton of talent, but again, Ukiah again is kind of the one big public school up in Mendocino County. They get a lot of good athletes up there too. So pretty big talent pool to draw from. And again, now that they're halfway through the season, I think that they're really kind of starting to understand how he coaches and how he, and how he wants to play. And so, we'll see. I think Ukiah will give St. Vincent a very, very good run for its money this year. And yeah, it should be a very fun game on October 21st to see what happens on that one. All right, switching over real quick to our last little league outlook here. The VVAL, again, the VVAL, I know we're obviously 2 weeks into this thing. American Canyon is undefeated at 2-0. I think they're the only 2-0 team right now, though. I think Casa is 1-0. I don't have the standings pulled up, but let's see here. Yeah, American Canyon is the only 2-0 team. Casa, Petaluma are both 1-0. Vintage, Justin Siena are both 1-1, and then Napa and Sonoma Valley are 0-2. Yeah, I mean, man, looking ahead of the schedule, there are some, huge games.
Games.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think this has this right now. I think is a legitimate 3-team race, and it very very well could be a 4-team race. With American Canyon, Vintage, Casa, and Petaluma kind of has that 3-4 team kind of in there.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, again, American Canyon, they knocked off Vintage, in the opening week, really kind of set the tone going forward. They're looking like the team to beat. They could be a very, very good team in NCS Division III. Playoffs coming up too. New head coach. They have a lot of young talent, a lot of good talent. You're going to kind of get our first, real look at them this week, in that game of the week. And I'll be very curious to know what your observations are, because they've been up and down the last couple of years. Obviously, they gave Windsor a pretty good battle last year, in the NCS playoffs. But yeah, I'd be really curious to kind of know what this kind of new look AmCam team looks like, because they some of their results have been really impressive this year. And I think that at this point they are the team to beat. Obviously, beating Vintage makes gives you that title. But again, Casa's coming along pretty well right now. I think their strength of schedule leaves a bit to be desired, but again, they're beating the teams that they should. We're relatively competitive in that loss to Cardinal Newman. And yeah, I mean, again, their defense, looks really improved, and their offense, again, behind a guy like Zach Carrera, who's, really kind of leading that charge, they're looking pretty good too. So, again, VVAL, who the heck knows? Some big games coming up here, I think, too. And I think, like you said, too, you can never really count on Vintage. I mean, again, yes, they did lose that first game, but, they lost to Petaluma last year, and they still, came back and won league. I mean, that just
they lost to Casa Grande the year before that.
Yeah, and they still won, right? So I mean, it's like even if Vintage loses these games, it's like I think everyone kind of starts to count them out, and you can never really do that. I think
their strength of schedule has been pretty high too.
They always play really hard. I mean, NCS Division I. It's funny because I don't think they've made the playoffs or maybe they have like a couple times the last few years, but like they always get smoked because NCS Division I is so freaking hard.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is they actually literally have to win league to make it into playoffs. So, and then even then it's like, then you're like an 8 seed or a 7 seed playing like a San Ramon Valley or a De La Salle or something. And it's never easy. So, anyway, we'll see how things kind of play out, but man, some fun games coming up though. I mean, again, this week, obviously kind of our first real big, top tier matchup, or that we're covering at least, but Petaluma, at American Canyon for our game of the week. Week after that, Vintage is going to be at Casa Grande. Week after that, American Canyon is at Casa Grande. Week after that, Egg Bowl, Casa at Petaluma, which should be great. And
Oh,
then
this is great.
November. I mean, every single week there's like one of these high caliber matchups. And then final week of the season on November 3rd, Petaluma is playing at Vintage, which we'll see how. Again, there's 4 weeks. Who the heck knows what's going to happen? But yeah, that Petaluma Vintage game could be a big decider as well. So lots of good stuff coming up in the VVAL. Excited to see how that
That's
plays out.
well, that's the other thing, and I do kind of want to kind of talk about some of the other teams we got in the VVAL too, because we talk about the big
Sure.
four, but obviously, Sonoma Valley, they have all the talent in the world. They could possibly, play spoiler. Napa's the very frisky team that we talked about, but they
Mhm.
lost to Justin Sienna, who's a feisty team. So, it's almost like this big merry-go-round of we have no idea what's going on until these teams actually play each other. But luckily, like you said, that's going to start beginning with this week. Absolutely. So, yeah, some fun, high quality football this year, just across the area, across our coverage area, and yeah. So, all right, Gus, should we transition now? Let's head into our predictions / previews here. Let's talk about last week real fast. I got a game. I got a game over you last week. You're 9-4. I'm 10-3. Bring that one game deficit back into fruition. You're 49-22. I am 48-23. We pretty much got everything correct except for Upper Lake Cloverdale. I picked Cloverdale. You picked Upper Lake. You got that wrong. Anything else? We both got Maria Carrillo wrong. We both got. Oh wait, actually, excuse me. No, we split Pleasant Valley Rancho Cotati, and I got that wrong because I picked Rancho. But everything else. Oh wait, no, actually, I did. I got Ukiah over you too because oh my goodness,
Yep.
well, crazy. Okay. Well, let's do this a little bit differently for our preview / predictions. We are going to talk a little bit more about some of these games than we normally do because I feel like we kind of just fly through some of these for our predictions. Let's start with our game of the week, Gus. I will be there. American Canyon takes on Petaluma Friday at 7 p.m. I'm excited to go to the Wolf Den because I hear it's a pretty nice stadium for the first time. So here we go. First big question, obviously, can Petaluma play spoiler in the VVAL race yet again? Obviously, American Canyon last year turned on the Jets in the latter half of the season and just had a tremendous finish to the season, including knocking off Casa like 35-7 in the playoff opener. Petaluma comes in 0-4 against AmCan in the VVAL, which is a pretty significant number, at least since that was when since the VVAL was
Created,
since the
yeah,
VVAL's
2018,
inception.
yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. Interesting teams here. Obviously, let's start with let's kind of tackle Petaluma here. Obviously, Chase Miller, their top running back, is having a phenomenal year. On the ground, Ed Burnsich is coming into his own in that fullback role. Their defense, you got London Sundell, reigning VVAL Defensive Player of the Year, and Burnsich on those defensive end slots. And yeah, I mean, they definitely have the talent, but obviously the question mark for Petaluma is those numbers. Obviously, you got lower numbers. I think only 22 guys, and definitely tires out pretty quickly. American Canyon, on the other hand, has got some very good talent. I know Mason Harris, their quarterback, has already thrown for almost 1,000 yards already. I think Johnny Harris. Excuse me if I pronounce that.
Isn't it?
Oh,
Ojani
Castillo.
Castillo.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Ojani Castillo. He's run for over 500 yards this season, and yeah, it's and Abdul Cates as well. Their top wideout has over 372 yards receiving. They got some talent, man. Trevor Hudson is first year head coach, doing a great job over there. But yeah, Gus, this is a huge, interesting game and huge for VVAL stakes.
Yeah, I'll be really interested. Like the one result I'm really kind of looking at this to kind of preview this one is I'm looking at how American Canyon's run defense has stacked up this year, because obviously Petaluma, runs the triple option, offense, tons of deception, all, but very very run heavy. They like to control the ball, play well in their defense. And yeah, I'm kind of looking at the Vintage game and how American Canyon's run defense, played in that one. They held Vintage, which is a again has a pretty good run game to only 113 rushing yards. Oh wow, wait, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Actually, that's super wrong. Actually, 256 rushing yards for Vintage. So maybe not the strongest. I was looking at the wrong
But
stat
they
there,
did force 3 fumbles in the first half. Or
they did force 3
half.
fumbles, and yeah. So, I mean, again, if Petaluma can run the ball, can move the ball, can control the ball like they like to, and kind of prevent some of those big explosive plays, that American Canyon is kind of known for. Yeah, I think Petaluma definitely has a good shot in this, but I think it will be a very, very tough challenge playing on the road, tough place to play. Battle-tested team, in American Canyon, and coming off of a season high in points and off beating Vintage.
Yeah.
A lot of things stacked up against Petaluma, but again, I think if they, just like kind of, Santa Rosa did against Pioneer last week, if they can, stick to their game plan, control the tempo, control the ball, control the pace, they have a good shot in this one. But that being said, I'm picking American Canyon.
Yeah. We're both picking American Canyon in this one, so maybe give Petaluma a little bit of some motivation, but who knows. Next game up that we're going to touch on, Cardinal Newman at Montgomery. Obviously, on paper, Cardinal Newman's a big favorite, right? Number 1 team in the rankings, all this other stuff. But Montgomery, big win over St. Vincent. Defense played amazing. Your guy, say that name for me, Gus, the running back.
Amasi Rabukwaka, I think.
Amasi Rabukwaka, he's running the ball well. They just, I believe they had a bye last week.
Yep.
Monty, nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. League opener, Gus. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of said, this is a, Newman will be a heavy favorite in this one. Both teams are coming off their buys. I think CalPreps has Newman as a 30-point favorite in this. CalPreps obviously going off computer rankings and strength schedule, and all this. They have their own algorithm, and it's obviously not always correct. Hence, Pioneer being a 14-point favorite last week, not always right, but I think that one probably will hold up. Again, we are both going Newman in this game, but again, like you kind of mentioned too. Coming off a bye, Monty's going to be rested up. Teams always get up to play Newman. Newman's playing at Montgomery. I believe it might be homecoming actually too. I don't know that for a fact. Or I think it might be, but so it could be a pretty intense environment over there. And yeah, Newman has had a couple slow starts offensively this year. I think in the Deanza game they started off a bit slow. I think the Vintage game they started off kind of slow. So I mean, again, same kind of thing. It's like that was kind of the story of the game. In the Montgomery St. Vincent game was Monty kind of had a really fast start on offense and got a few big scores and like really kind of hung with St. Vincent. And yeah, I mean, if they can do this, again, same kind of game plan here, but yeah, I mean, if you can keep Newman's offense from really getting going, if you can hold Homan in check, if you have some of those guys on the line who are I know banged up, if you can get them back healthy, yeah, maybe you got a chance here. But I do think that, yeah, I mean, Newman, again, number 1 team in our rankings for a reason. And I think they probably do win this one big, but I wouldn't be shocked if Monty puts up a nice little fight, but we'll see. Yeah,
just going back real quick, you mentioned homecoming. I did forget to mention it is American Canyon's homecoming, so it's going to be a raucous crowd over there. Yeah. Next one up, Rancho Cotati at Annalee. Biggest question, obviously, Pruitt and Hale. Are they healthy? What are they doing? If they don't play or are limited, what's their offense going to look like? What's their defense going to look like? This could be anyone's game. Annalee obviously coming off that I would say very solid win against Maria Carrillo, no doubt. We both picking Rancho here, Gus, but again, I mean, the what ifs, the question marks come into play. Those questions actually become answers, and who knows?
It's very dependent, obviously, on Pruitt and Hale. I mean, going over some stats, I think I calculated that between Pruitt and Hale, they have, I think, 1,600 of Rancho Cotati's 1,700 total yards of offense this year. So, yeah. So I'd say that's as much of a 2-man show as you can get on offense. But I mean, again, if they play, I think Rancho Cotati, or if they play and if they're even if Pruitt's at like 80, 75, I think that Rancho should be able to handle it, take care of business. But probably same situation. I don't know if it's Annalee's homecoming, but this is that kind of year. I know Annalee always always has pretty good, student sections. I will also say too, this there is a little bit of history here, obviously from last year. This was the matchup last season where, Rancho quarterback Liam Keeney took a late hit, from an Annalee defender, late in the game, suffered a bad concussion and missed the rest of the season. So I would not be surprised if Rancho has a little more fire and get up for this game, just kind of with that game in the back of their mind. So But I again, like you said too, I think Annalee is coming off of a good win, hosting this game too. If it's homecoming, it could be another big environment. But yeah, I think Rancho just probably has too much talent in this game. So yeah, and again, I think even if Pruitt is even like a little limited, it obviously limits a lot of what they can do. But if Hale's good to go, then I think that you're completely fine in the rushing game, and they should take this one pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah, and if so, the both Gio and Varney Martinez and
Yep.
Gio Ortiz are going to be huge factors if Pruitt and Hale can't go. Well, even if they can go, still.
Yep.
All right, Ukiah Carrillo. Gus, we are split on this one. You're going with Ukiah. I'm going with Marie Carrillo. I'm sticking with the Pumas here. This is probably one of the more fun matchups on the slate, to
I
be
would
honest with
agree.
you. Obviously, we have the big games, but this may be one of the more fun matchups we have. Could be a not a Redwood title eliminator per se, but could definitely show us a lot of who's for real, who's not. Gus, what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, I think we're going to find out, who's for real and who's not, like you said. But yeah, I mean, I think that, just the way Ukiah has been playing the last couple of weeks, they are, again, obviously, a couple of bad losses, but they are starting to click. They're starting to get the pieces back together. Their offense again putting up I believe that was a season high in points last week. Maybe they found something here with Bo David. At quarterback, I know Shea Parrish has been missed obviously a few games this year after that first game fighting suspension, but after that I he had a pretty big game against St. Bernard's, and then Tony Zacharias emerging as a really good wide receiver, and then same thing with Amari Phillips Porter, one of the more talented electric guys, skill guys I think in the area. So I think this will be definitely a little clash of styles, and Ukiah likes to mix it up, run pass. Obviously, David had that big game, passing game last week, but then Korea obviously big old ground and pound team. So, well, I mean, again, like you said, I think this could be anyone's game, but I think the way that Ukiah has been playing in the last couple of weeks, I think that they probably have the advantage of this one, and I'm picking Ukiah in this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, another game where we see who's for real and who's not. Pioneer at St. Vincent, Saturday 2 p.m. I'll actually be at this game because I'm going double duty here. We'll find out right away if Pioneer's actually contender in the Redwood. Obviously, we kind of just touch on that. St. Vincent's definitely the favorite. We both have St. Vincent in this one, but could be interesting if Pioneer gives a good little fight in this one, Gus.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, I think St. Vincent is just a better team. I mean, again, really good defensive line. Now with Catarelli back, they have a really really good rushing threat, and again, and Jack Davis is just such a fun guy to watch. And then again, I know that Pioneer has a lot of these guys on the outside. Big explosive play energy too. But this is also playing a game on a Saturday. It's going to be hot this weekend too, Petaluma. I think it's going to be up to like the 80s, 90s, and especially on that turf, out there at St. Vincent, it can get hot on Saturday. So, wear some shorts and some sunscreen and a big brimmed hat or something, because it is going to be warm out there. So that could also be a factor, I'd say too. I mean, again, especially last week, playing in the rain essentially, on a Friday night. So, anyway, long story short, I think St. Vincent is just a better team in this one. Maybe Pioneer breaks off, a couple of big scoring plays here or there, but I just think St. Vincent has too much firepower and is too much talent. So yeah, I think St. Vincent is the easy call on this one.
Yep. Okay. Those are kind of the games we kind of wanted to take more of a look at here. We're going to go through the rest of our predictions now, starting with Santa Rosa at Windsor. Obviously, Santa Rosa coming off a big win over Pioneer, but they run right into Windsor for their next matchup.
Yeah.
Not much to say about this one. I think Windsor by at least a couple scores.
I'm with you on that one. I know that all the Santa Rosa guys were pretty happy about winning last week, but I think even most of the guys I talked to afterwards were like, if we can be competitive, against Windsor, I think that's a win. So I think that says it all. But yeah, Windsor by a few touchdowns in this one.
All right, here we go. Middletown at St. Helena, Friday at 7:30 p.m. That is the kickoff up there in Napa County. So we're split on this one, Gus. I'm going St. Helena. I think their run game is pretty strong, but you're going with Middletown in this one.
So Middletown has already played the three best quote unquote teams in the NCL one. They beat Kelseyville by a touchdown. They shut out Willits 14-0 last week, and they only lost to Clear Lake by a touchdown. Clear Lake is far and away the best team in that league. I think Middletown is probably number 2 at this point. So yeah, I think Middletown wins this one.
All right. Next one up, finishing with the NCL one here. It looks like Cloverdale at Willits, Friday, 7:30 p.m. Big bounce back win for Cloverdale last week against Upper Lake, but they run into Willits, kind of like Santa Rosa
Yep.
Windsor. I just don't think Cloverdale matches up with Willits well at all. So Willits in this one.
Yeah, Willits has looked really strong this year. I mean, again, their only league loss so far was last week against Middletown. They haven't played the hardest teams yet, but yeah, they've been a very good team last couple of years, and I think that continues this year. And this week, I think they win, by a couple scores.
Going back to the other couple VVAL games on the slate, Justin Siena at Casa Grande. Justin Siena, they did beat Napa, gave Napa their first loss of the season, but Casa Grande, I think, is just on another level. Their defense is playing out of their mind at home as well. Casa Grande in this one.
Yep, not a ton to say, I think, about this one. I think Casa is just a better team. I mean, again, Justin barely beat Napa a couple weeks ago, and Casa, blanked him 38-0 last week, so I think it's a pretty easy Casa win.
Splitting this one. This one could be more interesting. Napa versus Sonoma Valley here. I'm going with the Dragons. I'm still high on them. Despite their inconsistency, I'm still high on their talent. Hudson, Giorita, Trenholm, and all those guys. But you're going with Napa, the frisky Napa team. This could be an interesting one. Gus, what do you have to say?
I just think Napa is a better team. Sorry, Sonoma Valley. I mean, again, we've been high on Sonoma all season, and they have a lot of talent. Just haven't been able to string together wins. And Napa has. I mean, again, I know that they've lost their last two, but barely lost to Justin. Obviously, blanked by Casa last week. But I mean, again, they also have a really solid win over Montgomery. They beat Nevada, who's not great. They beat Irvington from Fremont, who's not great, and they beat Kennedy from Richmond, who's not great. But the win over Montgomery, I think, says a lot, and I think it says that Napa is a better team than Sonoma Valley. So that's why I'm picking Napa.
All right, fair enough. All right, Fortuna versus Healdsburg. Healdsburg's got to make the trip up to Fortuna, and Fortuna is going to be pretty pissed off about that loss to St. Vincent. Despite Healdsburg scoring 42 points in that tie, Fortuna is going to have a chip on their shoulder for sure. Your poor Greyhounds, Gus, but we're both going with Fortuna in this one.
You're actually wrong. The game is in Healdsburg, so.
Oh, it's in Healdsburg. Excuse me.
But still, Fortuna, I think, by a couple scores in this one. I mean, again, Healdsburg has shown some life, obviously, but Fortuna is again, one of the better teams in Division 6 in the NCS, and also, honestly, one of the better Division 6 or one of the better small school teams in the entire state. I'd probably say. I think they're on the bubble of Cal High Sports top 15, top 20 small schools in the in the state. So Fortuna's a very good team. Healdsburg's not yet, so Fortuna in this one.
All right, let's finish off with some 8-man football, shall we? Stuart Hall at LCL on Friday, 6 p.m. start. My alma mater finally makes it into these damn predictions. Stuart Hall, baby, let's go. Stuart Hall, I mean, I don't want to gas in my alma mater too much, but perennial 8-man powerhouse has been for like years. But yeah, poor LCL, and I'm sorry. I love you, Coach Castro, but Stuart Hall is gonna win by a good amount.
Yeah, there's not much to say about this one. I mean, LC got beaten 60-6 last week by the California School for the Deaf. I mean, again, first year back playing football in a couple of years, 8-man. You're playing some good teams too. I'm not quite sure why they joined this league. I think they could have been in the league below and had a little more competitive games here. But yeah, I think Stuart Hall, like you said, they've been a very, very good 8-man team for a couple of years now. And yeah, this is going to be a mismatch for sure.
Go Knights, baby. Go Knights. Here we go. Okay, Tamales at Calistoga. We're both going Calistoga in this one, Gus. I think Calistoga's turned it around a little bit after loss to RUP. I don't think Tamales really matches up to their level. I think Tamales is kind of having a down year. Maybe you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But
they're 3-2. They're 3-2. So like they lost Stuart Hall by 21. So take that as you will.
Nice. Anyway, Gus, we're going with Calistoga.
Yeah, Calistoga got roughed up by Branson last week. I mean, no surprise. Branson's a great program. But yeah, I mean, this is always a very fun matchup. When I was at the Napa Register, the Calistoga Tamales games were always really, really entertaining, hard fought. Both just kind of small schools, just gutting it out. So I mean, again, not a whole lot out there about Tamales. Even they're, looking at their at their kind of schedule and stuff. It's they have one mutual opponent, and that's Roseland Prep. Tamales lost to Roseland Prep 36-20, and Calistoga lost to Roseland Prep 34-20. So could be a close game, I think. But yeah, I think this is a bit of a homer pick. We're just sticking close down for this one and saying Calistoga wins it.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Last game on the schedule here. Speaking of Roseland University Prep, they are hosting John Sweat on Saturday at 12 p.m. We've both gone Roseland University Prep in this one last year. They shut out Sweat 40-0. I honestly don't think anything really changes in this regard. I think Roseland University Prep wins decently big in this one, and keeps their run going.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, man, RUP, I love the story. I mean, again, I wrote about them last year, kind of in like one of their first, like this is their fourth or fifth year with football. They made the playoffs for the first time last year, and this year they're even better. It's great. I love to see this from a younger, growing program. A couple of games just with mutual opponents here. Both of these teams have played Crystal Springs Upland. Sweat lost 48-0 and RUP lost 60-34. Both teams have also played Round Valley. Sweat beat them 60-20 and RUP beat them 50-0. So just kind of based on those, it just looks like Roseland Prep is just probably a better team. And so I think I'm going to pick Roseland Prep in this one.
Cool. All right. That rounds up our football slate, all of our football content for this episode. We do want to touch on a couple things. Gus, you're going to a huge volleyball matchup tonight. Windsor Newman. Is it at Windsor? It's at Windsor, right?
It is at Windsor, yep.
At Windsor, yep. So
I believe, and that's the first of two meetings this season. I think the last is going to be on the final game of the season again. Yeah, it is. Look at that at Newman. So again, the schedule
makers did it again, man.
I know what they're doing.
But yeah, obviously both teams coming undefeated into league, undefeated in league play into this one. Huge matchup last year. The first game they played went to 5 sets. Or no, yeah, the first game they played went to 5 sets, and then the final game of the season, in which Windsor had already clinched the NBL Oak title, they swept him at Windsor's place. So both teams are much improved, I think, as well. Obviously, some great outside hitters on both teams, but that is a huge matchup. Go ahead, tune in if you want to. Go over to Windsor. But yeah, in terms of Sonoma County volleyball, this is probably one of the bigger matchups that's going to happen this year as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, not much else to add to that. It should be a really fun game tonight, fun atmosphere. Volleyball atmosphere is always get crazy, especially again when it's Newman Windsor. Yeah, it should be a really fun, exciting night, and looking forward to the coverage. And yeah, I mean, again, by the time you see this, the story will probably already be up on Press Democrat and PDPreps, and I'll have tweeted about it and stuff. So yeah, go check it out if you hadn't already.
It's also always a great thing when volleyball teams schedule their games right after football practices. So
that's true. It's going to be a fiery atmosphere out there for sure.
Fiery atmosphere. Cool. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it from us. Unless Gus, you got anything else?
Nope.
But keep on the lookout for all of our PDPreps coverage throughout the week in terms of all of our roundups and other sports and things like that. We got some teams that are doing some big things in some other sports as well. But yeah, we thank you again so much for consuming this content, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.